Zelda games are pretty long, consisting of numerous cutscenes, areas, dungeons, items. They can take dozens of hours for a first playthrough. Hell, even if you know what you're doing, it can still take hours to go from a new game to beating it. However, this assumes you're playing every game as intended, going through, reading text, solving the puzzles, all as usual. The thing is, these games are pretty busted. There are many tricks, glitches, and strategies in these games that allow you to beat them in a couple of hours or even a couple of minutes. Starting in September 2022, I set out on a mission to learn the any% speedrun for every 3D Zelda game, grinding on and off to improve my skills in order to prepare for the monstrous run ahead of me. This is how I beat every 3D Zelda game in under 10 hours. To start off, let's lay out the rules. The goal of this speedrun is to complete every 3D Zelda game back-to-back in the any% category. Any% basically means just beat the game as fast as possible without cheats, using any strategies or glitches necessary. Now some of you will hear that and think, doesn't that contradict itself? Cheating is banned, but you can use glitches? In speedrunning, a cheat is when you use an outside tool or device to give yourself an advantage. This could be through a cheating device, modified ROM of the game, or splicing segments together. Glitches are allowed as they can be done on an unmodified console, playing an unmodified version of the game with an official controller. Let's also outline what games we need to beat. The games included are Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. I know a lot of people will bring up, oh, what about A Link Between Worlds and the Link's Awakening remake? Don't those count as 3D games? And while yes, they use 3D models, the top-down perspective and the way they play is more in line with how the 2D games are classified. You compare the way you play Ocarina of Time to how you play A Link Between Worlds, they're completely different. We'll also be playing just the original versions, meaning no 3DS remakes or HD remasters. I also won't go super in-depth with everything in this run. I have 7 games to cover, and a lot of them have really technical glitches, so I'll only give basic overviews of them. If you want to do these tricks yourself, or just learn more about them, I highly recommend joining the Discord server for the game the trick is from. The communities are great and willing to help you with resources and advice to guide you through learning the glitch or even the whole speedrun route for a game. Basically, don't use this video as your guide on how to speedrun the games. I will also have the full run linked in the description if you want to check it out. With that out of the way, let's get into the run. At 10:30 PM on May 4th, I started runs, but because this category is funny, the completed run started at 11:30 PM. This is definitely a smart choice, and I recommend pulling all-nighters all the time to do dumb speedrun challenges. Most of you would expect that the first game would be Ocarina of Time. That was the first 3D Zelda after all, but we're actually starting with Majora's Mask. This is because Majora's Mask is incredibly inconsistent, as it has a very difficult trick that you only get one shot at. If you look at my attempt counter, roughly 80% of those attempts die on this game. For this reason, I put it first, so I don't have to do Ocarina of Time every single attempt. I am playing this game on the US Wii Virtual Console release, as it is the fastest version of the game. The file name here is also important. The first 5 characters don't matter, so I wrote balls because it's funny, but uppercase F, lowercase p, and lowercase r in the 6th to 8th slot is very important for a trick later on. When the game starts, there's a whole bunch of cutscenes as I become Deku Link and go through this part of the game as intended, grabbing the Deku Nuts, then going through the loading zone to end up under Clock Tower. Here is the first major trick of the run, Happy Mask Salesman Skip. Cutscenes in this game take 2 frames to start, so if you perfectly pause buffer so only 1 frame progresses between pauses, the cutscene introducing you to the Happy Mask Salesman can't start, allowing you to skip it. I failed. Upon leaving, I reset the game as soon as my HUD appears right here, and this is because the game autosaves here and it's faster to reload the file than go through some extra text and cutscenes. Immediately, I head over to the laundry area to grab a fairy, then how to enter the Stockpot Inn. Here I talk with Granny and listen to her story a couple of times to pass the in-game time to 3 PM and do another glitch. By backwalking against the right side of the exit here, you can squeeze past the guard and leave Clocktown early. With this, I go around and enter North Clocktown from the north, which skips a cutscene. I then enter the Great Fairy Fountain and gain my magic. I leave and pop this balloon with a bubble, allowing me to start hide and seek with the Bomber Kids. From here, I make sure this patch of grass is on screen when the time transitions to night. This will make sure the memory heap is correct for the upcoming trick. I do a twisted backflip by backflipping, letting go of target, and holding right to change my angle to climb up here as night falls. Once night starts, I break the sign, get in the corner, get into target bubble aiming cam by pressing B while targeting, then side hopping. All of this is to set up the heap for what I'm about to do. I then do a twisted side hop by doing a similar thing to what I did earlier with a backflip, and now comes the hardest trick of the game, and the reason why this game is first cycle skip. This is a very technical trick that I don't have the time to understand, nor would I have the time to explain. Basically, I get this kid in this position, do a setup to get in the right position and angle, then the trick begins. I use my shield to turn without moving my position, then once the balloon is in the right position, I begin the main bulk of the trick. By pause buffering, I stun the kid with a bubble, blow a bubble toward the balloon, and tag the kid on the same frame the balloon pops while blowing another bubble. Once the bubble I'm currently blowing pops, I can close the text box, hear the balloon pop, then I have to move my cursor in the menu over the Deku Nuts. Once the balloon particles disappear, if done correctly, the cursor will now be able to access glitched inventory spaces through arbitrary code execution. Scrolling up a bit allows me to equip 3 items: the Hookshot, Goron Mask, and Fierce Deity Mask. The Goron Mask is mostly for faster movement, the Hookshot is to set up the heap for a wrong warp, and the Fierce Deity Mask is to beat the final boss. After this monster of a trick, the run is pretty simple. I set it to the second day and roll over here in the swamp, grabbing magic along the way. I make sure that as I enter the Woods of Mystery, the witch's house does not come on camera, which is needed for the next trick to work. This trick is to wrong warp from here to the final boss arena. To do this, I break this bush, pull up the hookshot, then move right and up. The woods have a different layout each day, so I need it to be day 2. I then put away the hookshot and position myself here next to the bush. I hold out my shield and mash A to roll into the bush and pick it up as I get hit by this guy right here, launching Link backwards. I let go of shield and now the bush I picked up is unloaded, allowing for stale reference manipulation, or SRM. I then go down 2 screens and position Link here. The frame Link lifts his left leg while walking backwards. I hold right until this frame, then press A to throw the bush. This basically rewrites the entrance of the grotto so that it doesn't take us to where it should and instead takes us to the final boss arena. I put on the Fierce Deity Mask and grab some extra magic before beginning the fight. The Majora fight is pretty simple, just mash B to shoot sword beams until he's dead. Although if you die, the game crashes. Upon the final hit landing, the game is considered beaten and we can move on. I'm on page 3 of this script and I've only covered 1 game. Jesus Christ, this video is going to be long. Next up is Ocarina of Time, which is played on the Japanese Wii Virtual Console release. To start off, this file name is also very important for a trick later on. Upon leaving, I quickly grab rupees on the way to the Kokiri sword. It is required that I pick up every single blue rupee in Kokiri Forest that doesn't respawn later, so I do that and pick up a couple extra rupees to get 55 in all. In the shop, I buy the Deku Shield and Deku Nuts. Because I have both a sword and a shield, Mido lets me pass, and I keep my camera facing the village area as I pass over this trigger for the Deku Babas to spawn. It'll be important later. I can now do a glitch called Return A. By targeting, holding out the shield, and going in first person on the same frame as you get hit in the shield by something, in this case the Deku Baba, the camera is now locked in this angle. I need to now traverse back to the crawl space. Upon entering the crawl space, I leave, roll down right, and interact with the sign. By throwing Deku Nuts, I regain control of Link. By getting in this corner, closing the text box with C up, pausing and unpausing to prevent a soft lock, backflipping, then letting go of target and continuing side hopping, I can get down to these rocks. I slash the rock with my sword and mash A, which moves the camera way back to where the sign is, but I'm over here. I picked up the rock because I mashed A, but the rock deloaded as I did it. This is similar to what happened before with the bush in Majora's Mask. Now the hardest part of the game. I have to blindly move Link back to where the Deku Babas were without falling in the water. I count beats in my head to know how long I need to hold directions, and if I fall into the water, I need to re-enter the shop and try again. I maneuver until the camera returns to Link, and now I'm holding nothing over my head again. I go over the trigger to despawn the Deku Babas, perform a quick little setup to get the right angle, then place down the non-existent bush. Now going over the loading trigger doesn't spawn the Deku Babas, it instead takes me to the final cutscene with Zelda beating the game. It's also worth noting that this trick, even if done perfectly, has a 1 in 7 chance of failing and taking you to the Know-It-All Brothers house. This is referred to as getting kek-brosed by the speedrun community. I just think it's very funny that that can happen. Once the cutscene with Link and Zelda starts, the game is considered beaten and we can move on to the Wind Waker. Wind Waker starts with a couple minutes of cutscenes. While this game does allow intro skip to where it shows Outset, the intro time is not removed from runs, so I just didn't do it so I don't have 3.5 minutes extra added to my time spent in the last 2 games. This game is also played on the Japanese version. Usually at the start of runs, you'll see a trick called Manual Super Swim, and do I do it? No! This requires you turn every frame to build up negative speed, which is done either through hundreds of pause buffers, or just flicking your joystick really fast. I cannot do either. I had 7 games to learn, so I skipped out on this for now. Cut me some slack. Because of this, the intro is going to have a lot of cutscenes. Yay! I play through normally until I get my sword, get 15 rupees on these rocks, and head up to the Forest of Fairies where I grab 20 rupees in this log, then kill these bokoblins. After more cutscenes, I grab 10 rupees over here, side hop and jump slash clip up here to get 5 more rupees, then get the shield from Grandma. Using some of the rupees I just got, I went to Beetle's shop to buy a bait bag and a hoi pepper for later. Guess what comes up next? That's right, cutscenes, but in between I did do the first ropes game to get the spoils back, which is completely useless. At the start of Forsaken Fortress, I grabbed the green and red rupees here while waiting for the lights to get out of the way. Once I got up the stairs, I went through the door into this hallway where I turned left and beat the bokoblin manning the lights so I wouldn't get caught later. In this room, I put on the barrel only to immediately take it off. The game gives you a little safety period after you take a barrel off, which is just enough to sneak past the guards here and leave. Upon getting back my sword, I sit through a few more minutes of cutscenes and get put in Windfall. Here I get some money from these flowers, a pot hiding here, and another pot here to buy the sail. Using the sail, I go to Dragon Roost Island. Once I get the Wind Waker, I come over here and take out the pear to use a seagull to hit these bombs and drop a chest. I then do a trick called Storage, which is done by taking out the Wind Waker on this frame of Link climbing up a ledge, and when done while Link is facing a close wall, the game will turn him around to prevent the camera going inside the wall. This makes Link fall from the ledge, and by cancelling the Wind Waker's 3 frames before he touches the ground, you get Storage. In this first instance, I used it to store this chest here, and when opening a chest, Link's hitbox gets weird to make sure he interacts with it fine when grabbing the item inside. Storage cancels the animation, but gives us control with the hitbox, allowing for some weird collision and running up walls. I get Storage again, this time storing the King of Red Lion's text, then use this to keep my storage as I grab the Wind's Requiem to skip a cutscene. I do Storage once more and make my way to the front of the island where I pull out the Wind Waker to get camera lock. This is where the camera always stays in front of Link. Using this, I could do a Super Swim. When you're in the water, turning around makes Link get negative speed. Holding up while in camera lock flips the camera around every frame, allowing you to build up negative speed. This is pretty much the Wind Waker's version of the BLJ. After building up for a while, I swim backwards toward this reef where I can refill my air due to the weird collision from chest storage, and then swim back to Outset where the ship is still here, and using the chest storage I can climb up and complete the ropes game to get bombs. Save warping puts me back at Windfall because I was on the boat, and I get double storage using this mailbox to super swim to Forest Haven. Double storage prevents the cutscene from reaching here from playing, which is good because camera lock makes the cutscene soft lock. I use a bomb with a ledge to put myself in the island and get upwarp right next to this guy, who I damage down to low HP with. In Forest Haven, I kill the Chews, and after the cutscene, I get ready for the most physically demanding trick, the zombie hover. I position and angle myself, set a bomb down, and blow myself up. When you die, you have a little window of time where you can jump slash, but the game immediately cancels it. However, this could be counteracted by mashing B between 11 to 15 times a second. Doing this allows you to keep jump slashing and gain infinite height. I personally average around 13 to 14 a second. Doing this for a whole minute gets me straight to the leaf, and I can then save warp a few times to get on the boat and sail to this lookout. Here I could do double storage with the chest and super swim to this island, and by slowly walking, you could just clip in and get the upgraded quiver, which is needed for light arrows to work. With this, I have all that I need in order to beat the game. A few more save warps allow me to sail to the Fire Mountain lookout where I get double storage again, swim to Forsaken Fortress, and clip in to run up the walls to the top. After some cutscenes, I have to do the Helmarock fight. You can't win the fight without the Skull Hammer, so I just kind of fly past him and then do a setup to clip into the ground here, allowing me to skip the fight altogether. Fun little fact, this cutscene right here just gives you the Master Sword, even if you don't already have it. Now that we're in Hyrule, it's time for the infamous barrier skip. Pulling out the Wind Waker the same frame the barrier knocks you back allows you to stay here as long as you want. Combining this with a setup to get the perfect angle and position, like literally, there's about 65,000 angle values and only 12 work, and the position has to be exactly here. And also dropping a bomb on a specific frame of the idle animation allows the bomb to push Link through the barrier, saving like 3 hours. From here, I enter Ganon's tower, do a bomb launch clip to get out of bounds and glide to the loading zone to skip the trials, go through the maze and get the light arrows. I make my way up to Puppet Ganon's room, getting the powered up Master Sword and Mirror Shield from the cutscene, and fight Puppet Ganon. Phase 1 requires precise aiming as his tail keeps moving and I don't have the boomerang to break the strings. Phase 2 is easy, and Phase 3 is scary because oftentimes he'll just keep bumping into you, making you take constant damage and unable to escape. After the fight, I do a quick clip to skip the grappling hook, then position myself and shoot a fire arrow up. This hits the Morse up above, and if I get lucky, knocks him into the pot and burns the lid. Now I can get up, and by stabbing the Morse as it attaches to me, I can guarantee it will drop a heart when it dies. I can then use the leaf to position it to the top of this ledge, kill it with an arrow, and zombie hover again up to the ledge, healing with the heart drop to not die. One final cutscene plays, and then it's the Ganondorf fight. If I get hit at all, I die and have to do the zombie hover again, so I make sure Ganon faces away from Zelda as she fires her light arrows, then go in for as many hits as I can before moving away to avoid getting hit. After Zelda gets bitch slapped, the fight is pretty simple. The run ends when I stab into Ganondorf's head and it's on to Twilight Princess. Now you might be thinking, damn, 3 games in 2 hours, this is gonna be quick, and to that I say Twilight Princess. We won't be leaving this game until we're about 6.5 hours in, so get ready. Usually you would see players running the GameCube version of this game, but I'm playing Wii. I have GameCube, it's just that I learnt this game way before I got it, so things will be different than what you'd expect. Also, to make things even more different, usually runs start with a trick called Back in Time to skip the intro sequence. However, that requires Sword and Shield skip to enter Fair and Twilight. As I mainly run Hundo, I never actually got good with this trick. As such, I went through the intro sequence completely normally until I got the slingshot. I used this rock to clip into the gate to get to the other side, rescue Tallow using the bokoblins to break the cage as I skip the wooden sword, and I become a wolf, just as you do. I went through the sewers and got the Sword and Shield as well as the Ordon portal before entering the Fair and Twilight. I get the South Fair and portal and the Tear Vessel, and you'd expect me to get the tears as normal. Nope! For most, I just completely skip over getting them, only killing the bugs. I do actually collect the tears near and in Koro's house, as well as the ones in a tree trunk. Now time for a major sequence break, Early Master Sword. By charging a midna jump with this enemy here and letting go on the right frame of the right attack, Link will jump up high in the air and with the right angle, he can land out of bounds. From here, it's just a case of running over to where you can jump to reach the Sacred Grove. I saved the game here for later, then chased Skull Kid down and eventually got the Master Sword. This allows me to transform and warp at any point, as well as do more damage. I warp back to Farron and complete the Twilight as normal, except for here, where I just run through the mist with Human Link and the Lantern. With that done, I warp to North Farron and get the ending blow. You can actually go through the whole game without it, but you need it to finish off Ganondorf. Entering the Forest Temple, I run through until I get to this room, where I can go outside and use some jumps and jump slashes to reach the mini-boss Ook early. Ook is easily taken down with just one cycle of hopping and I get the Gale Boomerang. In GameCube runs, this would be all you need, you could just leave now. But on Wii, the main exploit of Gale LJAs, where doing a jump attack towards a Gale Boomerang gives you massive speed, doesn't work. As such, I have to rescue the rest of the monkeys and fight Diababa to clear the dungeon. It's worth noting that it is possible to skip having to beat the Forest Temple, however that requires some tricks that are so insanely precise, frankly it's not even RTA viable. Like literally these tricks are angle perfect, speed perfect, pixel perfect. Why do people do this? And then after that, you have to do a 1-frame trick that you only get 1 shot at, or else the run is entirely dead. I run over to Eldin, and I need to warp a bridge to clear the gap, so naturally, I ignore that and instead go over to Lanayru, side hop on the right frame of the skate swing animation to clip through, and enter Lanayru Twilight. From here, I go up to Zora's domain, get the warp portal, then I go back to Farron to get the bridge and bring it to Eldin. Confusing, I know. I go through Eldin Twilight and then trigger the sequence to tame Epona as Wolf. This causes the sequence to not go the way it should, but I tame her anyway. With this, I warp the rock in Death Mountain to Zora's domain and get the Lanayru Vessel. I want to take a moment to talk about these bugs here, the most annoying bugs of them all. Hitting them is already a bit annoying because of the lily pad platforms, but on North American Wii 1.0 copies, These bugs also sink to the bottom of the water before coming back up as tears, which loses a lot of time if you don't land them on the lily pads. After clearing the final Twilight, I tricked the game into letting me fight these shadow beasts as Wolf, which is incredibly hard as I don't have the Minna charge outside of Twilight yet. This will allow me to get the bomb bag, warp away, and talk to Isa again to dupe the bomb bag, making it permanently in my inventory. I go to Telma's bar and start the escort, but I don't have the bow to beat King Bulblin. No problem, I just clip through a wall with opponent and this puts me past the fight trigger. I do the escort and get the Zora armor, then go back to Ordon to Sumo with bow for the iron boots. I then go back to Lake Hylia and use a trick called a Midna dive to enter Lake Bed. By holding something and calling Midna right in front of a wall, Link put the item down exactly where he is, pushing him off the ledge and he sinks below collision. This is exclusive to the Wii version, though it doesn't work on the Korean or later revisions of the North American releases. I use this to get into Lake Bed without water bombs. I save and load the first save at Sacred Grove, do some howling, then load the other save in Lake Bed. This sets a boss flag that will be used later. I go through to this room where I jump slash in midair to reach this door, where I can then go through and look up here. Because of that boss flag from Sacred Grove, this boss fight triggers with the Deku Toad. I beat him, get the claw shot, and go back to the central room, and using the Wii exclusive third-person aiming camera, I can clip through this vine and go to the loading zone for the boss. One easy boss later, now it's the Midna Desperate Hours section of the game, which is nothing notable. Now we're at the halfway mark of the run. I get a memo from Aru to get access to the Gerudo Desert, which I run through the desert and camp, beating King Bulblin again, and enter the Arbiter's Grounds. Arbiter's Grounds goes pretty normally, except for a little clip to get the boss key early, then a save warp to quickly get back here after the spinner. After beating Star-Lord and raising the mirror, I warp to Zora's domain, go to Snow Peak, and do a glitch called Map Glitch. By opening the map and warping on the same frame that I called Midna, game deactivates loading zones and void planes, allowing me to climb Snow Peak without the Reekfish Ascent. I need to howl at the stone to deactivate it, however, or else I will softlock. Entering Snow Peak, I do a bomb boost to get over this wall and then get the ball and chain. With this, I have all that I really need to beat the game, so I could just move on to City in the Sky. Problem: I haven't gone through all of Snow Peak, Temple of Time, or the Skybook quest. Solution? Just use transformations to clip behind a statue and warp the cannon to Lake Hylia. After spending all my money to repair the cannon, I enter City in the Sky. I first open this door from as far away as possible to stop this fan from turning on, and then I go along the railing here after the small key to prevent Argarok from destroying the bridge. This will keep my save warp at the key chest. After getting double claw shots, I save warp back to the small key chest and climb up through the deactivated fan up to the boss key. I then climb my way up to the boss and beat him for the mirror shard. Because the game only checks for the last shard, I can enter the Palace of Twilight, which has no tricks of interest, just going through as you would expect. After Zant, I entered Hyrule Castle and did barrier skips. It only allowed me to avoid enemy encounters as I climbed up. The first phase of the Ganondorf fight is basically just waiting for the Electro Ball attack to send back at Zelda. Beast Ganon consists of hitting him with the ball and chain and knocking him down, then using Wolf Link to finish him off. I chase him down on horseback, and after a couple jump attack spin combos, Ganondorf is down and it's on to Skyward Sword. Oh boy, this game. I'm playing on the Japanese Wii U Virtual Console release for faster loads and text. This is the last game for the script I'm actually writing about because frankly, I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna describe this game in a way that makes sense to you all while also being concise. I already have 10 pages of the script for this video, I don't want to add too many more. I don't even understand half the run myself, how the fuck do I explain it to people who don't run this? Skyward Sword is a very complex run with very technical glitches throughout. I'm gonna do my best to explain, but please keep in mind that I won't explain every single detail, only brief overviews, because I don't want to have to explain every time I save a file or copy a file or do something with a file selected. I also start the run with 2 hero mode files, which allows for skipping cutscenes, double damage, and a more powerful Skyward Strike. I talk to Fledge, rescue the cat, save, and dive with his post. Remember that one back in time glitch I mentioned at the start of Twilight Princess? Well, we press continue and reset the game to activate it here. Using this, I do what is called a bit save, whereby saving file 1 with this statue sets the file to be saved in the title screen version of Skyloft. It's useful as a fast warp back to Skyloft or for the purpose coming up. The title screen Skyloft has an open statue to the Goddess Sword, so I go get that and do what is called a reverse bit magic, or RBM. By setting a scene flag between selecting a file and it fully loading, that flag will be set on the file. In this case, it puts the flag for Faron being open on File 1. File 1 loads into the title screen Skyloft, which allows me to get the Goddess Sword and leave. You can also see here that the Emerald Tablet is in, which means that I had summoned the Farron Pillar. I run over to Groose and enter and leave this house. Yes, this is important. I damage down in the cave and save before copying File 1 to File 3, then rescuing the Loft Wing on File 1. I do a 2-frame side hop to escape the wing ceremony, then die. New vocabulary unlocked, File Loop. I load up File 2, then back out to the splash screen, then save at the statue. This saves the contents of File 3 over File 2, while keeping it displayed as a new file. I bit save File 1 again, and do another technique called Reverse Bit Warp, or RBW. By loading a file, then going through a loading zone, I load up the file on whatever map I entered. In this case, I load File 2 onto the sky. I die, rescue the Loft Wing again, and this time I dive down onto this rock, take damage, then dive into Farron. I save and die again, and oh boy, do I even bother. I won't explain every single part because frankly, I don't even understand why I need to do some of it. I have to be careful copying File 2 to File 3 because if I press plus for more than a frame, the game crashes. I need to have File 1 loaded to open this gate. If I enter the sky or Farron with the wrong file selected, the game just crashes. Selecting the wrong file in Farron loads a cutscene. I need to save File 1 to Farron for way later, and die into the Octorok with File 1 changes the state of Farron so I can go over to Deep Woods where I load File 3, then skip a cutscene, and load up the Skyview Temple. I load in a funky place because of the coordinates of where File 3 is saved, and the dungeon itself also looks funky because of the layer shenanigans. I enter this room, kill this guy, then leave to correct the layers. I go through the end segment of the dungeon normally, getting the boss key, beating Girahim, then Skyward striking the Crescent for the Ruby Tablet. I load File 2 and die to do a reverse bit warp to the statue and put the Ruby Tablet in. I save and load File 2 again for bit. Here I do some more shit to give me access to Farron, where I bit save File 3 at the statue, go back to the sky, load up File 3 to spawn the Elden Pillar, then do an RBW to enter Elden on File 3 using the coordinates from the statue. This spawns me out of bounds, allowing me to run right up to the Earth Temple and do bit again. Using this gravestone at night, I can RBM the Earth Temple to be open. I actually crashed the game on this RBM because the cursor wouldn't let me select a file before leaving the house after setting it to night. In the Earth Temple, I used a Skyward strike on a keys to hit this rope without the beetle, used the same RBM as before to raise the staircase, then went into the boss fight. Skaldera is pretty tricky as I don't have the bomb bag. I need to use the bombs at the top and use specific attack combos in order for the fight to work. If I go too slow on some attacks, I can even soft lock. After that's done, I get the Amber Tablet and do an RBM to spawn the Lanayru Pillar on File 1. I enter Lanayru and do a bit warp, which is loading a file at the same time I save to load the file with the Skyloft coordinates. This puts me out of bounds, where the map has a surprising amount of collision, allowing me to run over to Lanayru Gorge. In here, I use File 3 to set up an RBM with the statue cutscene, which despawns a rock later. I did another RBM with Machi here to skip most of the minecart escort, then did another bit warp to get out of bounds, where I could void spawn the minecart near the end of its journey, and because of the last RBM, the rock is gone, eliminating the need for the hook beetle. One more RBM with opening Skyview is needed to unlock the Thunder Dragon boss rush, and now we're in the endgame. I load up the Girahim 3 fight, which is only possible to do at this point because of hero mode, and do the final major trick, Girahim 3 escape. By knocking Girahim off, ledge grabbing for a few seconds, then repeating, you can slowly push the platforms lower and lower, allowing you to eventually hop off and land on the ground without voiding. From here, saving and reloading takes you out of the boss rush and into the regular fight. An upslide with this wall and a clip through here allows me to run up to the void trigger, where I can then knock Girahim over the fence and fatal blow him to continue the fight like normal. Phases 2 and 3 take a while as I only have the Goddess Sword, which does significantly less damage than the True Master Sword, but eventually I made it through and onto Demise. My friend in the call dared me to do it blindfolded, so I turned my chair around so I couldn't see the game, and I immediately died, but I made it through no problem on the next attempt. Demise works based on hits, not HP, so the Goddess Sword only affects my range a little. With Demise down, this game was done. How is this game one of my more concise sections? Now we're going to the Switch for the next game, Breath of the Wild. The run starts upon gaining control of Link, but between pressing New Game and that, there's a long cutscene you can't skip. The game is optimally ran in French, specifically European French, as the text and voice acting combination is fastest. However, I played in English because I don't feel like having to switch console region and language every time I want to do runs. It only saves like 4 seconds anyway, so it's not that bad. Upon getting the Sheikah Slate, I run into this wall and do a clip through the wall. This is done by angling Link and the camera in just such a way that when you take out the scope lens, Link will turn around and go through the wall. From here, I climb up this mountain and crouch and uncrouch to get back in bounds. I make my way to the group of the goblins here, and along the way, I do what is quite possibly the easiest trick in any of the games, whistle sprinting. By holding down on the D-pad and mashing B, you can run and replenish stamina, though your movement is slightly slower. I grab some peppers, a shield, and a spear. From here, I shield surf into some text and set up a trick known as a shield clip. By climbing up here and dropping and landing on my shield, Link lands on the slope and his angle will be skewed during his shield jump. By angling myself at this window and doing a shield jump, then unequipping my shield, I can use the skew to clip through the wall. I then grab a bow and some arrows, then set up a bow lift smuggle slide, or BLSS. By targeting, pressing ZR and A in quick succession to pick something up and pull out the bow, then jumping, then pressing B and plus in quick succession, unequipping the shield, and aiming with the bow, the item is now stuck to my arm. By holding B and going up a ledge, Link will be propelled through the air. You can aim where you go by facing away from your destination and wiggling the joystick left and right, and you can gain speed by doing so. You can cancel it by letting go of B or letting the stick go neutral. I then do a fall damage cancel by aiming with the spear, throwing it, then unequipping the spear close to the ground before I fully throw it and release my inventory. From here, I line myself up for another shield clip on the shrine to get in, followed by another shield jump to get in the elevator. This allows access to the shrine without having to activate the tower. In the shrine, I get bombs, get rid of my skew by unequipping my shield on one of the frames where the angle is skewed, and set up for a wind bomb. By jumping off a ledge, placing a circle bomb, entering bullet time, placing a square bomb, then exploding the circle bomb, the square will launch right into Link, propelling him forward at high speeds. I throw a bomb to break some blocks, and I complete the shrine. Some of you may look at this all and think that this game is going to take forever to explain all the tricks of. However, this segment showcases pretty much every trick done. The rest is just different applications of these tricks. One thing to note about leaving the shrine is that it's faster to wait for the camera to start panning out before skipping the final cutscene. This makes the game load faster because otherwise the game loads the overworld twice. Funky ass game. After going through some text, I set up another BLSS with a bomb, this one taking me to the Magnesis shrine. I set up another skew right here and use this to clip it to the shrine, then use another to get up to the elevator. I grab the Magnesis rune and get rid of skew again. Skew is useful for clipping, but it makes wind bombs impossible and each instance of skew is specific for each clip, so I need to get rid of it anyway. I run through the shrine like normal, using a delayed shield jump to cross this gap. After the shrine, I go up on this wall to the left and do another BLSS. This one is the trickiest in the run as you have to change direction, get up a slope, and dodge trees as hitting one would propel you backwards. I grab an extra shield over by the hut and set up another wind bomb. This one is done from atop this tree and I have to angle my camera all the way up to do so. This is to prevent lag that would stop me enough in the air that I wouldn't be able to make my way to the top of the cliff. This is, in my opinion, the hardest trick in the game to do. Once up, I get skew again, angle myself, and shield clip through. Because of the ground, you have to crouch and uncrouch to activate the elevator. I get stasis and run to the end. After this shrine is a stasis launch to climb up here faster, but I fail, so I climb regularly. I break the tree, allowing me to use the stump to BLSS around this cliff and toward the shrine. I set up skew, angle myself, and clip back up into the elevator, eating food as needed to stay alive. I was supposed to grab more peppers earlier, but I forgot, making this a bit trickier as I have less time. I get Cryonis, get rid of skew, and set up for another wind bomb. This is the easiest trick in the game. After completing the shrine, I set up yet another BLSS to do fall damage cancel to land on the Temple of Time, in which I get the paraglider. I then drop down and use some amiibo. These 4 amiibo can drop fish, which will be needed for later, specifically the Mighty Carp and Mighty Porgy. I need at least 4 of these fish. I set up a BLSS to get the Hyrule Castle, and this one is special as you can hit the speed cap over the long distance and need to know when to try and stop going faster as otherwise the game will slow you down. I reach the castle and go through an unloaded gate to enter faster. Once things load in, I glide down to the Royal Claymore, sneak strike the Moblin and grab the Royal Guard's Claymore, then run under these stairs for a nature scale. I avoid the Lizalfos and blow up this wall for 3 ancient arrows. I distract this Lizalfos for the bomb and sneak strike it for the boomerang before lighting this pot and combining my scale with the fish for a +3 attack meal for the final fights. I jump over this malice here to reach this chest and get more ancient arrows before wind bombing up here to distract this Moblin, sneak strike, and take the edge of duality. I hop back up for another wind bomb to the boss fights, and I angle the camera during the wind bombs here to prevent lag. Now it is time for the final glitch of the game, Wind Blight Skip. Normally you have to go through all 4 blights if you skip the Divine Beasts, but I got in a precise position, aimed right here, ate the attack up food, then walked forward and let the initial Wind Blight cutscene play out. The arrow is constantly hitting Wind Blight in the cutscene, making him die before gameplay even starts. Water Blight is pretty easy. I hit him twice with the Edge of Duality, then spin around to knock him out before just swinging once more to end phase 1. I then switch to the Royal Claymore, get 2 headshots in, spin for 3 hits, then slam for 2 more. After 3 more headshots, he's down. For Fire Blight, I spin for 3 hits before slamming for another 2, then do the same with the Royal Guard's Claymore. For phase 2, I drop a bomb, blow it up on him, hit him a bit with the Boomerang, then the rest of the hits are gone through spinning with the Royal Claymore. Thunder Blight is the hardest of the Blights. I run up and break his shield with 2 hits, then turn around and spin. I turn around because facing away before a spin actually allows you to get double hits. I get 5 hits before slamming, then do another 2 before a slam, and throwing the Claymore at him ends phase 1. In phase 2, I threw the Boomerang at his shield, then headshot him. I hit him 4 times with the Boomerang to break his shield and stun him more, then I do a spin with the Edge of Duality for 3 hits before slamming, doing another 2 hits, slamming, and ending the fight. Now is the most difficult part of the game in my opinion, Calamity Ganon. I start off with 6 headshots with Ancient Arrows, then run over here for 10 Bomb Arrows and a backup sword that I didn't end up needing. I shoot Bomb Arrows and parry his laser until my bow breaks and use Flurry Rushes to finish phase 1. Phase 2 is much easier. I picked up a Royal Claymore and parry a Fireball to knock him off the wall, then go in for a stun lock. By spinning until he jabs his spear back into the ground and letting go, he cannot successfully get up and is stun locked. My Royal Guard Claymore broke before I could slam down, so he broke out, but luckily I was able to finish off with the Royal Claymore after a laser parry. Dark Beast is free, just go to where the targets spawn and shoot them as soon as possible. Even if you die, you just get put back at the start of the fight. Timing ends in the final shot hitting the eye, and now there's 1 game left. Tears of the Kingdom starts with running through a straight path and 4 minutes of unskippable cutscenes. It's worth noting that there is an intro skip for this game, however I didn't do it for the same reasons as I described with Wind Waker. Russian is the fastest language, saving a whole 1 second off the run, however I didn't change my system settings at all. I do a precise jump to get up on this ledge and leave the cave to get wings. Whistle sprinting was patched in this game, so the fastest movement is to run, then while low on stamina, crouch, press B, press R, then press B to gain back stamina. After diving down and getting the Purapad, I take out a wing and fly to the Temple of Time. Along the way, I duplicate wings by holding them, then closing my inventory the same frame I stored it. I drop a wing behind me, go through a cutscene, and regain control on the wing, allowing me to jump off and respawn back up at the ledge. I flew over here and got some bombs and a shield in the cave, then climbed up to the Ascent Shrine where I went through as normal. Afterward, I used these amiibo for Fleet Lotus Seeds, and then I did a wing ride with some dupes for bombs and seeds. For these dupes, I had to do a shield jump and drop the items for the dupe. I got the energy cells and then used the same amiibo from Breath of the Wild to get some more fish. I used bombs to get a ruby here, then duped both the ruby and fish. I got another shield from these boneheads, then cooked the seeds for 2 speed meals and attack food. I ran over to Fuse where I went through the shrine and grabbed the sword and used bombs to get through faster. From here, I used wings and ascent to quickly get over to Ultra Hand, which I used bombs on my shield to get through faster. Another wing takes me to the Temple of Time where I get recall and fail to open the door. I warp back to the Shrine of Resurrection and go through the recall shrine. Back at the Temple of Time, I open the door and complete the Great Sky Island. I use a wing to head over to the castle, and along the way, I dupe rubies until I have 30, while also removing the fuse from my shield. Once the wing breaks, I fall down and do a fall damage cancel. This is done by attacking in midair at the same time as I pull up the L menu, closing it and opening the shield menu, switching shields, diving, then pressing B. I go down this well, and using the same technique as before, except entering bullet time instead of diving, I can clip through the ceiling. I dive down all the way past the castle descent, doing another fall damage cancel, put Link in a ragdoll to clip back and bounce, then one more fall damage cancel to enter army. I use rubies to cause massive explosions that kill all the enemies. Because of these massive explosions, I have to be careful to not throw it too close to me or hit an enemy directly or I will blow up and die. I also pick up a big black boss Moblin Horn. I also get a Royal Halberd and Royal Claymore once the army is cleared and Molgera spawns. Usually I would have to fight all the bosses, but I don't feel like doing that. Instead, I'm gonna run over down here, clip through the ceiling, then run behind the gate and clip through again to get back in bounds. Right before Ganondorf, however, I do a glitch called Zuggle, which is when I pretty much drop weapons against the wall so they don't leave my inventory, while also switching weapons around to stack weapons on top of each other to do massive damage on Ganondorf. On 1.0, you only have to do a few Zuggles, but for some reason 1.1.0 and 1.1.1 nerfed it specifically on Ganondorf. No idea why they did that, or even why they waited until 1.1.2 to patch it all together, but cool. Because of this, I just have to stack more. After that's done, I equip the halberd, fuse the boss Moblin Horn, and enter the fight. Right away, I used my attack up food, and because of the juggling and attack food, I managed to knock out Ganondorf with only one flurry rush per phase. The only barrier between me and the end of the run is Demon Dragon. Because I don't have the paraglider and because I'm bad, I opt to wait until I get to the very top, then dive down from above for each spot. It's slow, but it's safe and easy. I just didn't want to practice this fight because doing so is such a nightmare. With the final blow to Ganon's skull and the dive down to Zelda, I finish off the run by grabbing Zelda's hand in 9 hours, 58 minutes, and 16 seconds. After over a year and a half of on and off grinding and 41 attempts at the run, it was finally done. Overall, despite the long grind and the difficulty of such a run, this was an incredible run to do, perhaps my favorite I've ever done. It gives a beautiful blend of all these different skill sets across multiple games, and it was a rewarding goal to work towards. Hell, maybe someday I'll come back to it and grind my times lower, but for now, I'll move on. I guess after such an accomplishment, the only thing to wonder is, what's next? This is a massive milestone that few players have done, and I've worked so long and hard on this speedrun achievement, so what do I do now? Well, many would say 3D Zelda 100%, and to that I say, I don't know, maybe. I'm already back on working through Twilight Princess 100%, and the other Hundo categories look fun, so maybe I could work toward that over the next few years, but I won't lock myself to just Hundo categories. If a category looks fun, I'll give it a shot. This is only the beginning of my 3D Zelda career. There's always greater heights to strive for, and who knows what the future of these games or even future games will have in store. I won't follow just one path. I'll do things my way.